Lonely rancher rescued a girl branded wicked. Then she revealed his path to redemption. The October wind cut through the Montana territory like a blade, carrying with it the scent of dying grass and the promise of an early winter. Samuel Carter pulled his worn leather coat tighter around his shoulders as he guided his horse down the rocky path toward Cedar Falls. The town lay nestled in the valley below, its wooden buildings looking like scattered matchsticks against the vast expanse of prairie that stretched endlessly toward the horizon. Sam's weathered hands gripped the reins with practiced ease, though his mind was elsewhere. 5 years had passed since he'd made this monthly journey with any real purpose beyond necessity. 5 years since Margaret and little Thomas had been taken by the fever that swept through the territory like wildfire. Now, at 34, he felt decades older, his once bright blue eyes dulled by grief, and too many nights spent staring at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. His ranch, the Double C, had once been the pride of the territory. 2,000 acres of the finest grazing land, with a main house that Margaret had filled with laughter and the sound of small feet running across wooden floors. Now it felt like a tomb, empty rooms echoing with memories he couldn't escape but couldn't bear to face. The sound of shouting pulled him from his dark thoughts. As he crested the hill overlooking Cedar Falls, Sam saw a crowd gathered in the town square. Even from a distance, he could sense the ugly mood that had taken hold of the townspeople. A traveling preacher stood on a makeshift platform, his black coat flapping in the wind like the wings of a carrion bird. His voice carried across the square, filled with righteous fury. "Behold the wages of sin!" The preacher thundered, his arm raised toward heaven. "This woman has brought wickedness upon herself through her own actions." Sam's jaw tightened as he rode closer. He'd seen enough of these traveling preachers to know they were more interested in collecting coins than saving souls. They preyed on small towns, stirring up fear and hatred wherever they went. But as he drew nearer, what he saw made his blood run cold. A young woman, no more than 22 or 23, was bound to a wooden post. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her face, and her simple brown dress was torn and dirty. But it was her eyes that struck Sam most forcefully. They blazed with defiance even as tears streaked down her cheeks. She wasn't cowering or begging for mercy. She stood straight, chin raised, meeting the crowd's hatred with courage that took his breath away. "She seduced a God-fearing man," the preacher continued, his voice rising to a fever pitch. "When he resisted her wicked advances, she struck him down with violence. The mark of wickedness must be upon her, that all may know her true nature." Sam dismounted and pushed through the crowd, his presence causing murmurs to ripple through the gathered townspeople. He was known here, though he rarely spoke to anyone beyond the necessary transactions of buying supplies. The shopkeepers and farmers stepped aside, some nodding respectfully, others eyeing him with curiosity. "What's her crime?" Sam asked, his voice cutting through the preacher's rhetoric. The preacher's eyes narrowed as he studied Sam's face. "She attacked Brother William when he tried to counsel her about her sinful ways. Nearly broke his jaw with a fire poker. A woman who would raise her hand against a man of God is marked by wickedness itself." Sam's gaze shifted to a man standing near the platform, his face swollen and discolored. Brother William, presumably. Even from where he stood, Sam could see the man's shifty eyes and the way he wouldn't meet anyone's direct gaze. In 34 years of living, Sam had learned to read men's faces, and this one reeked of dishonesty. And what counsel was he providing? Sam asked, his voice deceptively calm. The woman's head snapped up at his question, hope flickering in her dark eyes. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse but clear. "He tried to force himself on me. When I refused, he said I was a temptress sent to test him. I defended myself." A murmur of disapproval rippled through the crowd, but Sam heard something else beneath it. Doubt. Not everyone here was completely convinced by the preacher's version of events. "She lies," Brother William sputtered, his hand moving unconsciously to his swollen jaw. "I was merely trying to save her soul when she attacked me like a wild animal." Sam studied the man's face, noting the nervous sweat beading on his forehead, despite the cool October air. He'd seen enough liars in his time to recognize one now. His gaze shifted back to the woman, taking in her torn dress and the bruises on her arms that spoke of a struggle. "Cut her down," Sam said quietly. The preacher's face flushed red. "This woman must be marked. The Lord demands justice." Sam interrupted, his voice carrying a quiet authority that made several people step back. "And I'm not seeing much of that here." "You would interfere with God's work," the preacher challenged, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Sam's hand moved to rest on the grip of his Colt .45, not threatening but noticeable. "I'm interfering with a mob about to brand an innocent woman, based on the word of a man who can't look me in the eye when he speaks." The crowd began to shift restlessly. These were decent people, most of them, caught up in the fervor of the moment. But Sam's calm words were having an effect, making them question what they were about to witness. "She's not innocent," Brother William protested, but his voice cracked slightly. "She's a dangerous woman, unnatural in her ways." "Dangerous because she defended herself?" Sam took a step closer to the platform, his blue eyes fixed on the preacher. "Or dangerous because she exposed a hypocrite?" The preacher's face went pale, and he glanced nervously at Brother William. The crowd was beginning to murmur among themselves, and Sam could see doubt spreading like ripples in a pond. "I'll take responsibility for her," Sam announced, his voice carrying clearly across the square. "She'll come with me. If she's truly wicked, it'll be on my head." "Sam Carter, you don't know what you're doing," called out Jim Morrison, the town's blacksmith. "That woman's trouble." Sam turned to face the crowd, his weathered face set in hard lines. "Maybe, but I know what I'm seeing here, and it's not justice. It's fear dressed up as righteousness." He walked to the platform and began untying the ropes that bound the woman. Her eyes met his, and he saw gratitude there, but also wariness. She'd been betrayed before, probably more than once. "What's your name?" he asked quietly as he worked at the knots. "Elena," she whispered. "Elena Martinez." "Well, Elena Martinez, you're coming with me. Can you ride?" She nodded, though he could see she was barely staying upright. Whatever she'd endured at the hands of Brother William, and this crowd had taken its toll. The preacher was still sputtering protests, but the crowd was beginning to disperse. Without their audience, the righteous fury was deflating like a punctured balloon. Sam helped Elena down from the platform, noting how she flinched when he touched her arm. "My horse can carry us both to my ranch," he said. "We'll figure out the rest from there." As they walked through the crowd toward his horse, Sam caught Brother William's eye. The man's face was twisted with rage, and something else, fear. Sam had seen that look before, in the eyes of men who'd been caught in their lies. "This isn't over," Brother William hissed as they passed. Sam stopped and turned, his voice low enough that only the man could hear. "Yes, it is. And if I find out you've been spreading lies about this woman, or if you come anywhere near my ranch, we'll finish what she started." The threat hung in the air between them like smoke. Brother William's face went ashen, and he took a step back. Elena was waiting by his horse, her hand resting on the animal's neck. She looked up at Sam with eyes that held years of pain and hardship, but also a strength that reminded him of forged steel. "Why?" she asked simply. Sam considered the question as he helped her mount his horse. Why had he intervened? He'd spent 5 years avoiding human contact, drowning his sorrows in isolation and whiskey. What had made him step forward now? "Because," he said finally, settling into the saddle behind her, "sometimes a man's got to choose between what's easy and what's right." As they rode out of Cedar Falls, Sam felt something stirring in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't quite hope, not yet, but it was something. Perhaps it was the way Elena sat straight in the saddle, despite her obvious pain, or the way she'd faced down that mob with courage that put most men to shame. Whatever it was, it felt like the first crack in the wall he'd built around his heart. The wind picked up as they headed toward the double sea, carrying with it the scent of coming snow. Winter was approaching, and Sam found himself wondering what changes it might bring to his solitary existence. The ride to the double sea took nearly 2 hours, and Sam could feel Eleanor's body growing heavier against him as exhaustion took its toll. She hadn't spoken since they'd left Cedar Falls, but he could sense her fighting to stay conscious. The October sun was beginning its descent toward the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose that reminded him painfully of evenings he'd once shared with Margaret on their front porch. As they crested the final hill, the ranch spread out before them like a forgotten memory. The main house sat sturdy and weathered, its log walls darkened by years of Montana winters. The barn stood nearby, its red paint faded but still proud against the endless sky. Corrals that had once held dozens of horses now stood mostly empty, save for the few animals Sam kept for basic ranch work. "This is it," he said quietly, more to himself than to Elena. "Home." Elena stirred at his words, lifting her head to look at the ranch. "It's beautiful," she whispered, and something in her voice made Sam's chest tighten. It was the first time he'd heard wonder instead of pain in her tone. Sam guided his horse to the front porch and dismounted carefully, then reached up to help Elena down. She swayed on her feet, and he caught her elbow to steady her. Up close, he could see the full extent of her injuries, bruises on her face that were just beginning to darken, cuts on her hands from the ropes, and a haunted look in her dark eyes that spoke of trauma beyond the physical. "You need food and rest," he said, surprised by the gentleness in his own voice. "And those wounds need tending." Elena looked up at him, studying his face as if trying to read his intentions. "I don't want to be a burden. I can work for my keep." "You're not working anywhere until you heal," Sam replied firmly. "Come on." He led her up the wooden steps to the front door, the boards creaking under their weight. His hand hesitated on the doorknob. It had been so long since he'd brought anyone into this house. The last visitor had been Doc Patterson, coming to tell him there was nothing more he could do for Margaret and Thomas. The door opened with a familiar groan, and Sam stepped aside to let Elena enter first. She moved slowly, taking in the main room with its stone fireplace, worn furniture, and the layer of dust that had accumulated over months of neglect. Her eyes lingered on the family portrait above the mantelpiece. Sam, with his arm around a pretty blonde woman, a small boy with bright eyes sitting between them. "Your family?" she asked softly. Sam's jaw tightened. "Was. Fever took them 5 years ago." Eleanor's expression shifted, understanding flooding her features. "I'm sorry. I lost my family too, but differently." She didn't elaborate, and Sam didn't push. They both carried their grief in different ways, and he recognized the look of someone who wasn't ready to share their deepest wounds. "There's a spare room upstairs," he said instead. It was going to be a nursery, but it's got a bed and a window. You can stay there as long as you need." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay such kindness." "You don't need to repay anything," Sam replied, then cleared his throat awkwardly. "I'll get a fire going and find some food. You should rest." As Elena climbed the stairs, Sam busied himself lighting the fireplace and rummaging through his meager supplies. He found some canned beans, hardtack, and coffee, not much of a meal for someone who'd been through what Elena had endured. He made a mental note to ride to the Morrison farm tomorrow to buy some fresh eggs and milk. The sound of water running upstairs told him Elena had found the wash basin. Sam tried not to think about her tending to her wounds alone, but the image of her bruised face kept intruding on his thoughts. He'd seen plenty of violence in his time. The frontier was a hard place. But something about the systematic cruelty she'd faced stirred a protective instinct he'd thought was buried with his family. When Eleanor came back downstairs, she cleaned herself up as best she could and changed into one of Margaret's old dresses that Sam had quietly left outside her door. The blue calico was too big for her smaller frame, but it was clean and whole. Her dark hair was still damp, and she'd braided it simply down her back. "The dress," she began, "belonged to my wife," Sam said, not looking up from the pot of beans he was stirring. "She would have wanted someone to get use from it." They ate in comfortable silence, the crackling fire providing warmth against the evening chill. Sam found himself watching Elena as she ate, noting how she chewed slowly and deliberately as if she hadn't had a proper meal in days. Her table manners were refined, speaking of a better upbringing than her current circumstances suggested. "Where are you from?" he asked finally. Elena set down her spoon and looked into the fire. "Originally, Santa Fe. My father was a merchant there, dealt in fine goods from Mexico City. We had a good life until—" She paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "Until he was accused of cheating an American trader. They said he was a greaser who couldn't be trusted." Sam's jaw tightened. He'd heard that word before, spat out like poison by men who judged others by the color of their skin or the sound of their names. "What happened?" he asked gently. "They burned our store, ran us out of town. My father, he couldn't bear the shame. He started drinking, gambling. We lost everything." Elena's voice was steady, but Sam could hear the pain underneath. "After he died, I tried to make it on my own. Worked in saloons, cleaned houses, anything that would keep me fed. But everywhere I went, there were men like Brother William who thought a woman alone was there for their taking." "Is that how you ended up in Cedar Falls?" Elena nodded. "I was traveling north, hoping to find work in one of the mining towns. I stopped in Cedar Falls for supplies, and Brother William saw me. He said he wanted to help me find respectable work, but when I went to his room at the boarding house—" She shuddered. "He said I was tempting him with my wicked ways, that I needed to be cleansed of sin. When I fought back, he called for help, said I'd attacked him without cause." Sam felt anger burning in his chest, hot and fierce. And the townspeople just believed him? A traveling preacher's word against a Mexican woman with no family, no connections? Elena's laugh was bitter. "What did you expect?" Sam was quiet for a long moment, staring into the flames. "I expected better from people I've known for years. I expected justice. Justice is a luxury for people with money and the right skin color," Elena said quietly. "People like me, we take what mercy we can get." "You're not getting mercy here," Sam said firmly. "You're getting what you deserve, safety, respect, and time to heal." Elena looked at him with surprise, as if kindness without expectation was foreign to her. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me. I could be everything they said I was." Sam met her gaze steadily. "I know what I saw in that town square. I know courage when I see it, and I know what it's like to feel like the world has abandoned you." Something shifted in Elena's expression, a softening around her eyes. "You're not what I expected from a rancher." "What did you expect?" "Someone harder, more demanding." Sam almost smiled. "I used to be harder. Life has a way of wearing you down, making you see what really matters." They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Outside, the wind had picked up, rattling the windows and reminding them both that winter was coming. Sam found himself thinking about the months ahead, the isolation, the cold, the long nights with nothing but memories for company. But now there would be someone else in the house, someone who understood loss and betrayal. "I should probably tell you," Elena said suddenly. "I don't know much about ranch work. I can cook and clean and mend clothes, but I've never been around cattle or horses much." "There's not much ranch work to do anymore," Sam admitted. "I've got about 30 head of cattle left, and they mostly take care of themselves. The horses need tending, and there's always wood to chop and repairs to make, but—" He shrugged. "It's not the operation it used to be. What happened besides?" She gestured toward the family portrait. Sam was quiet for so long that Elena thought he wasn't going to answer. Finally, he spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "After they died, I just stopped caring, stopped working, started drinking, sold off most of the herd to pay for whiskey and to keep the bank from taking the land. I kept telling myself I was just getting through the grief, that I'd pick up the pieces eventually. But 5 years went by, and I never did. And now—" Sam looked at her, this woman who'd faced down a mob with courage he'd forgotten he possessed. "Now I'm thinking maybe it's time to stop running from life." Elena nodded slowly. "Maybe we can help each other figure out how to do that." "Maybe we can," Sam agreed. As the fire burned low, they prepared for bed. Sam banked the coals and checked the doors while Eleanor climbed the stairs to her room. At the top of the steps, she turned back. "Sam, thank you. For everything." He nodded, not trusting his voice. As her door closed softly, Sam stood alone in his living room, listening to the sounds of another person moving around upstairs. It was a sound he'd missed more than he'd realized. For the first time in 5 years, the house didn't feel like a tomb. It felt like a home where healing might be possible. The first snow of the season arrived 3 weeks after Elena came to the Double C, falling in thick, lazy flakes that transformed the ranch into a winter wonderland. Sam stood at the kitchen window, watching Elena feed the chickens he'd bought from the Morrison farm. Her bruises had faded to yellow shadows, and her strength was returning with each passing day. In those 3 weeks, something had shifted between them. Elena had thrown herself into helping around the ranch with determination that both impressed and worried Sam. She cooked real meals, mended clothes with skilled fingers, and even helped with the horses. In return, Sam had begun to emerge from his shell of grief. "The snow's getting heavier," Elena said as she came through the kitchen door, her cheeks pink from the cold. "I think we're in for a real storm." Sam nodded, still watching the swirling flakes. "We'll need to bring extra hay to the cattle and make sure the water troughs don't freeze." Elena began preparing coffee, their morning ritual. "I was thinking about what you said the other night, about rebuilding the ranch." Sam had mentioned it during one of their evening conversations by the fire. The idea of bringing the Double C back to its former glory had been growing in his mind like a seed finding light. "What about it?" he asked. "I've been keeping the books for household expenses, and I think it might be possible if we're careful with money and work hard." Her dark eyes were bright with excitement. "I know I don't know much about ranching, but I'm good with numbers. My father taught me bookkeeping when I helped in his store." Sam felt hope stirring in his chest. "You've been thinking about this a lot." "I've been thinking about what it means to have a home again, about being part of something bigger than just surviving." She sat across from him at the wooden table. "I want to help you rebuild this place, Sam. Not just as someone you're helping, but as a partner." The word hung between them, loaded with implications. Sam studied her face, seeing determination and something deeper, a need to belong, to matter. "It would be hard work," he said slowly, "starting from almost nothing, building back the herd, repairing fences. It could take years." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Eleanor replied firmly. "I'm afraid of being useless, of taking charity without giving anything back. Let me help you save this place." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "There's something you should know first, about why I really stopped caring about the ranch." Eleanor waited, sensing the weight of whatever he was about to share. "After Margaret and Thomas died, I blamed myself," Sam said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I figured if I couldn't save my own family, what was the point of saving anything else?" Elena reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "That wasn't your fault, Sam. Disease doesn't care about how much you love someone." "What changed?" Elena asked gently. Sam looked at her hand covering his. You did. Watching you fight for your life, for your dignity. It reminded me what courage looks like. It reminded me that giving up isn't honoring the dead, it's betraying the living. So, what do we do first? Sam smiled, the first genuine smile Elena had seen from him. First, we survive the winter. Then, come spring, we start small. Maybe buy a few young cattle, repair the fencing. We can make it work, Elena said. Together. Together, Sam agreed. That evening, as the storm raged outside, Elena pulled out a ledger book. I've been making calculations. If we sell the cattle we have left in the spring, we could buy 20 young heifers and a good bull. It would mean a lean year, but it would give us a foundation. Sam was impressed by her thoroughness. You've really thought this through. I've been reading through your father's ranch journals. There's a whole library of information in those old books. As they talked late into the night about their plans, Elena brought up what had been weighing on her mind. There's something else. I've been thinking about the people in town. They're going to talk about me living here, about us working together. Let them talk, Sam said firmly. And if they try to cause problems for the ranch? Sam was quiet for a moment. Then we'll find other markets. Sam, Elena said carefully, if you're worried about propriety, we could make our partnership more official. Sam felt his face flush. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm saying that if you wanted to stay here permanently, if you wanted to build something real together, there are ways to make that happen that wouldn't compromise your reputation. Eleanor stared at him, her dark eyes unreadable. And what would you get out of such an arrangement? A partner. Someone who understands loss and still fights to rebuild. Someone who sees potential instead of just ruins. Sam paused. Someone who makes me remember what hope feels like. Elena studied his face in the firelight. This isn't about love, is it? It's about survival. I buried love with my family. I'm not asking you to love me, Elena. I'm asking you to build something with me. Elena nodded slowly. I think I'd like that. A partnership based on mutual respect and shared goals. Then we'll think about it, Sam said. We have all winter to decide what we want our future to look like. As they prepared for bed, Elena paused at the stairs. Sam, do you think it's possible for love to grow again, different than before, but real? Sam considered the question. I'm beginning to think that maybe it's possible to find different kinds of love, something real and lasting in its own way. I'd like to believe that too, Eleanor smiled. As she climbed the stairs, Sam remained by the dying fire. Outside, the storm raged, but inside the house felt warm and alive. For the first time in years, he was looking forward to tomorrow. Spring arrived at the double sea with rushing, melted snow and new beginnings. Sam stood in the barn doorway, watching Elena work with a horse in the corral. Over the winter months, she had developed an almost magical touch with the animals, speaking to them in soft Spanish that calmed even the most skittish mare. 6 months had passed since that October day in Cedar Falls, and the transformation in both of them was remarkable. Elena had filled out, her face no longer gaunt with hunger and fear. Sam had changed too. The constant ache of grief had eased into something manageable, and he'd found purpose again. She's ready, Elena called out, leading the gentle bay mare toward him. Perfect for riding into town. The mention of town brought familiar tension. They'd been largely isolated through winter, venturing to Cedar Falls only when necessary. Each trip was marked by curious stares and whispered conversations. About that, Sam said, taking the mare's reins. I've been thinking about what we discussed, about making our partnership official. Elena's hand stilled on the horse's neck. The banker's coming next week for the cattle loan. It would help if we were legally married. Is that the only reason? Elena asked. No, Sam said quietly. I care about you, Elena. Not the same way I cared about Margaret, but in a way that feels real and lasting. I want to build something with you that will outlast both of us. Elena's eyes softened. You saved my life, Sam, But more than that, you gave me back my dignity. I'd be honored to be your wife." They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony in the Double C's living room, with only Doc Patterson and his wife as witnesses. The loan came through, and by May they had their first small herd grazing in the eastern pastures. It was on a warm June morning that everything changed. Sam was mending fence when he heard horses approaching. He looked up to see 5 armed men cresting the hill, led by a face that made his blood run cold. Brother William looked older, but his eyes still held the same cruel gleam. The men with him had the hard look of hired guns. "Samuel Carter," Brother William called out, "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Sam set down his tools, hand resting on his gun belt. "I don't think we have anything to discuss. That woman you took, she's wanted for theft, stole money from the church collection before she ran." Sam felt cold anger building. "That's a lie. I have witnesses, good Christian folks who saw her take the money." Brother William's smile was ugly. "I'm here to collect her. She's not going anywhere," Sam said quietly. Another group of riders approached, a sheriff's deputy and 2 armed men. The deputy pulled out a folded paper. "Mrs. Carter, you're under arrest for theft of church funds." Sam stepped forward, hand moving toward his gun. "She's not going anywhere until I see that warrant." "Sam!" Elena's voice came from behind him. She walked up the hill from the house, chin raised with defiant courage, but also resigned acceptance. "Elena, go back to the house," Sam said. "No," she said firmly, standing beside him. "I won't run anymore. I won't let you get hurt because of me." "Elena, no," Sam said, turning to face her. "We can fight this." "We can't," Elena said softly, tears in her eyes but voice steady. "Look at them, Sam. They came ready for a fight. They want you to resist so they can claim you were interfering with justice." "I'll come with you," Elena told the deputy, "but I want it known that these charges are false." "Eleanor, please," Sam said, his voice breaking. She took his hand, squeezing gently. "Remember what you told me that first day? Sometimes a man has to choose between what's easy and what's right. This is what's right. Trust me." "How touching," Brother William sneered. Elena's head snapped up, fire burning in her eyes. "You want to know what I stole. I stole my dignity back from you. I stole my right to live without fear. And I stole something else, the truth about what really happened that night. I wrote it all down, signed and witnessed, and gave it to someone who will make sure it sees the light of day if anything happens to me." Brother William's face went pale. "You're lying." "Doc Patterson was very interested in my story, especially the part about the bruises that matched your grip exactly, and the torn dress with your blood on it." The hired guns looked uncertain now, glancing between Brother William and Eleanor. Eleanor turned to Sam, cupping his face in her hands. "I love you, Samuel Carter. I didn't expect to, but I do. I need you to trust me now, the way I trusted you that day in town." Sam felt tears burning his eyes. "I love you too, more than I thought possible." "Then let me go, let me face this, and prove my innocence. When I come back, and I will come back, we'll rebuild this ranch together and show everyone what real love looks like." Sam nodded, unable to speak. Elena kissed him gently, then turned to the deputy. "I'm ready." As they rode away, Sam stood alone in his pasture, watching the woman who had brought light back into his life disappear over the hill. But for the first time since Cedar Falls, he felt something stronger than grief or anger. He felt hope. Because Elena Martinez Carter was the strongest person he'd ever known. And if anyone could face down lies and hatred and emerge victorious, it was her. She had shown him the path to redemption. Now it was time for him to walk it. 3 days later, Sam rode into Cedar Falls with Doc Patterson and a folder full of documents. It was time to fight for the woman he loved, armed with the truth and the courage she had taught him. The story of the lonely rancher and the woman branded as wicked was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. What did you think of Sam and Elena's incredible journey from despair to hope? Their story shows us that sometimes the most broken people can find healing in each other, and that true love isn't just about passion. It's about choosing to build something beautiful together, even when the world seems determined to tear you down. Did Elena's courage inspire you the way it inspired Sam? Do you believe they'll overcome the false charges and prove that love really can conquer hatred? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing what touches your hearts in these stories. If you enjoyed this tale of redemption and resilience, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more inspiring stories that prove the human spirit can triumph over even the darkest circumstances. Your support means the world to me and helps me bring you more powerful stories like this one.